This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Invest Like a Pro. So today I'm doing a stock market update as of Thursday's close for Friday morning. I'm going to do a full update in terms of all the market conditions. I want to go through volatility, sentiment, overbought, oversold. I haven't done this in a while. Actually, give me some feedback and tell me if you like the way I'm going to do this. I used to do this on a pretty regular basis, and I'll start to implement it a little bit more often if people like it. So let's go ahead and get into this. So I've got my basically my market conditions listed here, and I'm going to go through the trend and the momentum as I always do on the other chart in a minute. Right now I have the trend for the monthly at neutral, weekly negative, and daily neutral. And then if we look at the momentum conditions, the monthly is neutral, weekly neutral, and daily is neutral. So I want to go through and explain all that because it might not seem like that makes a whole lot of sense when you look at it. But I think after you hear what I have to say, you'll understand where I'm coming from. We then have the volatility, and I'm using this chart up here with the ATR, and I'm going to look at it from both a daily and a weekly. And then the overbought, oversold oscillator, I'm using an RSI 5 weekly, and that's down here. And then just so you know, the update on the sentiment, it's a negative 2%. So we've jumped up from negative 19 2 weeks ago. We're now at negative 2%, more bears than bulls. Now, it's still a positive weight. If I'm looking at this as a weighting in the market, I would call this a positive, but obviously not quite as positive as it was when it was down, negative 19%. So we still have too much bearishness out there, but really not. It's coming off pretty quick. All right, let's start with the volatility because as you see, I have the daily has moved to neutral. And the reason that's the case, so I want to look at this chart and say, when we have a rising ATR on the daily for the S&P, that means that the volatility of the S&P is going up. That means the range is going up. A daily range is going up. And when that's happening, that's usually a negative. But since we've rallied off this low, if you notice, the ATR has crossed down below its 18 MA. And because that line is still rising, it's considered neutral. If this turns down, the 18 turns down and this stays below it, then at that point, this actually turns positive because we're turning, the volatility is starting to trend lower. If volatility is trending lower, just like it did back here and just like it did back here, those are typically periods which can be a little bit more positive. This one was pretty short-lived. That really is a little surprising to see. It only lasted for a pretty short period of time where that turned. That was really only for this period where you had that. And then things started to turn up again. But then this one, we had a pretty nice drop into this bottom, and we had a really nice rally until things changed here. So it's a good thing to be on the lookout for, especially if you're swing trading. You kind of want to know if the volatility is going up. You're going to have a lot more gaps to deal with. It's a little bit tougher environment. Now let's take a quick look at the weekly on this chart. And you can see that it's been negative basically since late last year. It's been negative. It turned up, and the moving average turned up right near the end of the year. And that was a big risk factor that went through the roof going into the end of the year. And since that time, this part of the indicator has remained negative. Now, if you notice what this is doing right now, we're losing slope in the 18 and we're making a double top here. It's starting to turn down. If this can turn down through this line and this line can turn down, then we're going to turn this component also positive. So something we need to be watching here. And it's part of the reason why I wanted to show this in this format. All right, so let's look at the overbought, oversold oscillator, which is right now in the middle. And again, I'm using a short-term weekly one, but if you notice, look at signals like this where we make a lower low into the June low and RSI makes a higher bottom. We kind of did the same thing here with a little mini version of that. But the key thing is recognizing when you're overbought or oversold. And in most cases, just so you know, if you're in a trending period and the conditions look good based on the trend and the momentum, then overbought isn't as big a deal. I mean, you can get these pullbacks, but it's not the type of thing where you get these type of swings. It's when the momentum is not as good, it's negative or neutral, we don't have a really strong trend, or we have counteracting trends. We have one trend going down, another trend going up, another one neutral. When you have that, then you want to be looking at overbought and oversold. All right, so right now we're in the middle. We're rallying off of oversold. We'll see how it reacts at this 50 mark. Maybe it wants to work itself up to overbought. I think that's actually the most likely scenario based on the fact that there were so many bears at the bottom. So that's kind of where I'm standing right now. When I look at all of these indicators, I still have a slightly positive bias based on the sentiment. We're working off an oversold condition that hasn't reached overbought by any stretch of the imagination, and we have made a undercut and turned back to the upside. So I kind of like that. And now, if you notice on a daily chart, we're starting to see the first signs that the volatility is starting to shrink. So all of that put together, I would say that the conditions, not counting the trend and the momentum, has started to improve from a very bearish signal. A lot of these were bearish. We got oversold, and now we're starting to see some improvement in both the sentiment and the volatility. Let's go ahead and look at the trend charts now, or the individual time frames, and go through those. So I have this at neutral, and the reason is when I look at a chart like this, you look at the bar chart, you got to ask yourself a simple question. Am I above, is the 18 above the 40 and both lines are rising? Or is the 18 falling below the 40 and both lines are falling? Meaning, do we have a look where both lines are declining or both lines are rising? We don't have that on the monthly. We had a rising line and it's turned over. Now, when we're below the 18 and it's rolled over, I can't call it positive, but can I really call it negative on this time frame? Not really. I really can't do that yet for the simple matter that we really need the 18 to cross down below the 40 to have a true bearish trend like we did for how many years? On this time frame from 2010, we were above. They were basically both rising from 2011 on through this whole period. That is the mega trend. Okay, we're looking at a monthly 18 and 40 kind of determining what's really going on. Right now, we're in a neutral pattern on the really big trend, okay? Now, if you look at the momentum characteristics, I have it at neutral. And you can see that we had a pretty strong reading on the last peak on ADX, and now it's dropped down underneath. We don't really have any sellers or buyers here. The buyers and sellers are both under 25, so I would call that neutral. And MACD was really negative up here. Right at the turn of the year when we had all that volatility and all that. I mean, that's a big negative signal. But now we've worked off a lot of the overbought. We've even worked our way back down towards this prior low. I don't know. I mean, it's not bullish, but is it really bearish? I would say I would call it more neutral right now, especially because we are still above the zero line. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when I say this is neutral from a momentum standpoint and neutral from a trend standpoint. Now, the weekly is a little bit more straightforward. We've got a trend to the downside. Both lines declining, prices below. Now, if price rallies up, if both lines are still declining, it's still a bear trend. Okay, that's still considered a bear trend. That's how I would analyze it. But the moment we cross up above this and it flattens out or turns up, it goes neutral. Okay, even if it's still below the 40. If it gets back above both, then you're clearly more of a neutral pattern. By that time, the 18 is almost always going to be cupping around. So right now, this trend is neutral, but look at the momentum. We're making a higher low in MACD. We're making a lower low in red DI. Remember, that's the sellers. The sellers have lost strength, and MACD is making a higher low, showing this is making a lower low, this is making a higher low, so we have divergence. So is it positive momentum? Well, I mean, we held the 25. ADX held 25 on this last pullback. It's hard to call this a bullish momentum condition on this chart. So I'm not going to call it that, but I'm not going to call it negative either based on what's taking place here. That's a lot different than this low. If you look at this bottom here in the strength of the momentum condition, this would have been negative. okay? And this would have clearly been negative. So based on the conditions that I look at, the weekly chart would have been negative into this rally. Now, let's go ahead and look at the daily chart because this one's the one that's really changed right now. We have the 18 cupping around to the upside. Price is now back above. Now, I'm calling it neutral because the 18 isn't above. We don't have, if we can get this 18 above and hold that, then I can say, okay, we're clearly in a bull trend. But big thing is, are we negative anymore? The moment this started to flatten out, we switch from negative to neutral. And that sometimes is a big deal. If we're going to the downside like this and you go to neutral, that's usually a pretty bullish sign. Same thing happened here when we were declining, these two lines declining, and then this turned and started to flatten. We got going. This trend started to turn positive as well. Okay, so not positive, but neutral. And then we eventually did turn positive on this one. So right now, this trend has got itself back to the zero line, okay? And there's a lack of, so the ADX has dropped down under 25 and both lines are below 25. So what does that mean? This was a really bearish trend and now it's dropping down. So it's losing downside momentum. It's turning more neutral, and that's a positive right now. Now, until we see green DI breaking out and showing real strength, we don't have a lot of conviction in this upside right now. Right now, we could be setting up as a bearish pattern. This could be setting up bearishly if ADX keeps dropping and this starts to turn at the zero line, then we're looking for failure here as a sell signal. Now, I'd like to see these two lines get a little bit closer together. I'd actually like to see this test one more time, maybe even come into the zone between the two and then pop out and then fail. If it's going to do that, that would be the next sell signal is what I'm be looking for. In the meantime, we have to watch the momentum on the hourly chart. Look at the strength of this last rally. You see the MACD hitting a pretty strong new high, and look at the strength of the ADX on this move. So right now, we're just consolidating off that peak. We don't show a lot of selling strength right now. So as long as this trend is showing good momentum signs, we shouldn't be in a big hurry to turn this into a negative trend or short this or anything. So if this can keep doing what it's doing, it might actually turn this positive and we might actually see the green DI kick in. We might actually see MACD turn up. So we don't have to predict. Just do really good analysis to start with your smaller time frame and work your way up and see if it can improve this time frame. Right now, this time frame hasn't improved. This time frame has. If it keeps getting stronger, then this one will improve. If this keeps improving, then eventually this one will improve. If this one keeps improving, then this will improve. So it's like a spinning wheel. It's wheels within wheels, right? We start with the small one, and then we work our way up to this one, and then we work our way up to this one, and then we work our way up to this. So that's what we're looking for. I don't actually have the hourly in the trend conditions or the momentum conditions, but right now it's really good and it's the driver of this move. As long as it stays strong and we don't get a full-fledged reversal in the trend. So I'd be drawing in a trend line and saying, okay, if this breaks the trend line, I need a full-fledged reversal because look at what's going on here. And I want to see red DI show up. If this is going to turn, I need to see red DI. I need to see a zero line break. I need to see a 1, 2, 3. It can't just be a move to the downside right now. It's not enough. I would be expecting support at the 18 right now based on the conditions that I have in place. So that's the way I'm looking at this. If this can survive a 2 to 3 bar pullback towards the 18 day, then we could be looking at the hourly at a zero line reversal as a potential buy signal again. All right, so these are how I want to outline this. We do have a potential short play setting up, but it's still a little early. We've got the makings if we don't show any more strength to the upside. All right, so that's the update for the week. Go ahead and post any questions or comments. Thanks.